So, way, way back in the midst of time, and I had to go and find out exactly when this was, and it turns out it was actually in 2004. Um, I ran a marathon called the Niagara Falls International Marathon. These days, if you go and look at that marathon, the course for it is run entirely on the Canadian side of the river um, of Niagara Falls. Um, but back in 2004, the race actually started in Buffalo, USA, and it began there and then ran across the border and finished in Canada, just beside Niagara Falls. So a fantastic fun run. Um, we were bussed. The people who joined the race from the Canada side, we were bussed into Buffalo from the Canadian side. And the bus stopped at the border and we all went through passport control. And then we were put back into the bus and driven to a secure area in Buffalo where they sort of kept us sort of in um, not a pen, but a sort of secured area with some buildings so we could shelter um, until the start of the race. And then we ran out of Buffalo, back over the bridge, over the border into Canada, and subsequently sort of finished in Niagara Falls. Why would I be telling you about this? Well, our author today also ran a marathon, a different marathon that crossed the USA-Canada border. And we'll hear more about that later. So hi and welcome to Running Book Reviews podcast, where we review books written for runners, about runners, and by runners to help you decide if you'd like to read the book for yourself. We also hope that listening to us chat about running can help keep you motivated about your own running and maybe inspire you to try something new or read something different. My name's Alan, with my co-host Liz. We're going to talk today with author S.B. Stone, or Stephen, about his book, Running Through.
Running Through, My Journey Through Moments of Flight is Stephen's journey into running via a series of tiny moments of flight. This book is divided into short stories describing some of the moments in his personal running journey and how they ended up influencing his life. Some stories are funny anecdotes and others are not funny at all and deeply personal. The common thread is that Stephen is running through them all. A little bit about Stephen. S.B. Stone, as he likes to be identified on his books, is a son, husband, dad, marathoner, and writer who loves to bring his journey to life on the pages and share it with the world. He completed his first marathon in 2023, so very recently, and published this book shortly after. This was not the first book, though, and he also wrote another book in 2021 called The Walk: Stories About You. But today we're going to talk about Running Through. And so I'd like to welcome Stephen to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you both for having me. Also, a funny story. The book that's published that's called The Walk is not actually by me.
It's not by you?
I learned shortly after I published this book that there's another S.B. Stone out there somewhere.
Oh no, now you need to change your pen name.
I know. I thought about
Oh,
that.
you've just lied to all our listeners.
I know.
But that's okay, because Alan is definitely going to keep this in because I know him.
Yes. It's funny though, because I noticed the exact same thing when I looked on Amazon and I saw S.B. Stone. I think his is like S and then period B period Stone.
Oh, wow. I mean, because, we obviously have some information in your book because the book is your story. So it's a bit your bio. But then I was like, well, let's see what else there is out there. And so I went on Amazon because there's always an author section.
Yeah.
But I don't think you completed anything in the author section. Yeah. So that wasn't helpful.
Okay, so this is actually your first book, and
this is my
just getting
book.
started on
your
okay,
well, congrats.
Thank you.
Congrats on the first book, because the first
exciting.
One. Yeah.
Very exciting. But thank you. That was a fantastic introduction either way.
So while we're talking, should we be calling you Stephen, which is like kind of your general name, or
yes,
or do you like Steve or
Stephen is fine. Stephen
SB.
I do SB Stone on the book, just for privacy purposes. There's a bunch of stories in there that I know my wife wouldn't like want certain groups like because of the work that she does.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
She can't put all of her like her name out there or anything like that.
Oh, I see.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay, so it
that's
makes it a little bit more anonymous because,
correct.
yeah.
Correct.
Well, as you can see, S.B. Stone is not even an original author name,
It
so
obviously
I
I
know,
works.
think
right?
Yeah.
you can reassure your wife that, like, it's
Yes,
just,
yes.
yes.
You tried, and couldn't find anything on SB Stone. I love it.
Yeah, yep. Yeah, I Googled you. I tried to see if you had a website.
I don't.
I looked at your Instagram,
That's about it.
but yeah,
It's well
yeah, but
hidden.
oh yeah.
Right. That's
I mean
right.
your book is out there though. Like you have an
Yes.
Instagram for your book,
Yes.
and your book is there, and obviously your book, like, you promote that, but yeah, there's not many side stories other
No.
than what's in the book. So your
That's true.
secret is safe with the whole internet.
Right. Right. Apparently so.
Okay, so let's get into the questions. So we always ask the first question, which is more general, and it's how did you decide to write the book and where did the idea come from?
Yeah. So this book, I actually don't like writing at all. Like I do not like I remember when I was in high school, grade school, college, even like anytime we had to write a paper, anytime we had to write anything more than like a paragraph, like I dreaded it. Like I was very, very bad at
Same. I was exactly the same. Like
it.
English
Yeah.
class was I dreaded it because I loved to read the books that they gave
Yeah.
us to read. I loved the assignments, but I
Mm.
hated
Yeah.
writing
Like I just
the essays.
I never liked it. I never enjoyed it.
Hmm.
Um, and over the past probably the last 8 to 10 years, I've been trying to convince my wife to write a book. Because, and you'll notice throughout this book, her journey, her story is it's very powerful. It's very powerful. And she's been very resilient through that entire journey. And she always does it with a smile. Like she always has this huge smile on her face. And one of her jobs is to help others. So she does that constantly. But I told her, and I've been telling her for forever, like you should write a book, like write at least blog, at least like
Hmm.
Mhm.
share your story with somebody else because like there's others out there that can see this and hear this and be motivated or inspired to continue on their own journey. And I kept doing that years and years and years. And then probably about 18 months ago, year and a half ago, I decided, maybe it's not she that needs to write the book. Maybe I should write the book from my perspective or write things down from my perspective. Initially, I didn't know it was going to be a book. Just started writing, and actually, I came up with the thought as I was running. So on one of my long runs, that's where I do my.
Running is good for that.
It is,
Sure
it is. I
is.
do my best thinking on my runs.
Except that isn't it inconvenient that you
It
have no
is.
paper
Yes,
because like
exactly. I
then
don't remember anything. I don't remember anything. So, and
Yeah.
that was
I
actually
have
one of
that
the
problem.
issues.
Mm,
That was one of the issues is I I would like after I thought about, oh, light bulb, maybe I should write the book. Like I should be the one to write things down from my perspective. And initially it was just let me tell the world about her journey. And it wasn't even about running. Like let me tell the world about her journey. I won't use her name. I'll just put it out there. And kind of as I continue thinking through it and throughout various runs over the year, I thought through like, I developed this mantra a few years back of run through, and it means a lot to me now. It's kind of grown to mean a lot to me, and I would think, I can how can I tie my passion for running that I've developed very recently, relatively recently, into this type of story, right? Into showing, how resilient one person can be, or even just stories that I can think of from my life, and that's kind of how it all developed and evolved is going from me trying to force my wife to write about her story to
hmm.
me trying to force myself to write about my story from this perspective and seeing her go through everything, seeing different you'll see different moments of my life go through kind of going through that whole journey. So it's definitely become I mean running is obviously a passion of mine, but writing it down has become something that I'm very very excited about. I want to continue sharing it with the world.
So you've just told us that you you hated writing, but you've written a book.
Mm.
And in the book, one of the things you start off with is you tell us that you hated running. You
Yes,
always hated running.
Mm.
I
So
did.
so you hated writing, and you hated running, and here we are. You've written a book about running, or with a big running theme in it,
That's right. That's
necessarily
right.
about running.
Which
Um,
which is odd. Which is odd, right? Like
yeah.
I,
So what
Isn't it
changed?
strange? I think it's a little bit like when you're a kid, you hate broccoli, and then you grow up to be an adult,
right.
and you're like, oh, broccoli, it's like the best thing. I'm going to buy it every week.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
So I think, Alan, to your question,
Yeah.
what changed is as I did it, both of them, I realized like these two things can be therapeutic for me, right? Like
Okay.
writing down my journey and thinking about moments in my life that I haven't thought about for years, right? And some of the earlier
Yeah.
stories that you'll find in the book, and writing them down and reliving them, and then thinking about recent moments that, like Liz, you mentioned, are not so funny that are very serious moments. Kind of reflecting on those, and at the same time, as I continued to run, and as because in high school I was a sprinter, I ran nothing but 100 meter to 200 meter sprints, and that was basically it, except one time. But as I continued to run longer distances, 5Ks and then 10Ks and then half marathons and eventually the marathon last year, I realized that running has become therapeutic, and it's become my way of just clearing my mind, just going out by myself. I run by myself most of the time, so going out by myself, with a podcast or an audiobook or music or whatever it may be, and just zoning out, just going in my thoughts. So both of those things I think have become very therapeutic for me.
You have any advice for people who are maybe thinking they should run but not sure they like it, or they tried to run one time and it felt so bad that they never want to go and run again, which often occurs, I think.
Hmm.
Do you have any advice for those people?
I've been there. I've been that person that tried to run one time and it felt terrible. So then I didn't run for another, I don't know how long, probably 5 years or something. My advice is just go out and give it a try. Don't put too much pressure on yourself. Don't worry about the numbers that are on your watch. Don't worry about, how the person next to you is running or whatever it may be. Just go try it, see what works for you. I mean, it can be running down to the block and back, to the end of the block and back, right? And keep going and set goals for yourself, set small targets for yourself. That's what I did. I just went out and tried it, and I realized, running it's a healthy activity to do, right? And it's a very relatively easy activity to do. You just go outside and go. Like, you don't need equipment. Now, granted, the running shoes and different gear, can add up as you get more into it.
Yeah, well, our cheap sport gets less and less cheap as
Yes.
we practice it.
Yes. As you find different things that interest you, because
Yeah, you're like, oh, I have to do this race. Oh,
that's right. That's
$125.
right. So if you're a beginner, try not to spend too much money.
Yeah.
But yeah, just go out and try it. Go out and do what works for you. Don't put too much pressure on yourself. Just keep going. And consistency, I think, and it's kind of cliche, but consistency is key, right? So like you
Hmm.
go out and you set a target for yourself to run twice a week, right? Or once a week or whatever it may be, and then grow that to twice and then 3 times and 4 times, or whatever it may be. Something else that I found very beneficial to me, at least, and I don't know if it's the same case for everybody else, is the running community that is on Instagram. Like, I know it's very, like, millennial of me, but I'm out there and I follow a lot of these pages of like big name runners, and then even runners like me that are beginner and that are not
Hmm.
super fast, but like are still showing their journey and all that. Like, just getting that motivation every morning. Like when I wake up, looking at, like, I'll look at Instagram and see that, and I'm like, okay, I need to go out and run. Like, I
Hmm.
need to go out and do
Actually,
this.
I love that you said that because I feel like it seems like there are two camps, like people that absolutely don't want to go on social media because they think it's,
Yeah.
it's going to make them feel bad about themselves. And then people that love social media. And I think that social media can be a lot like what you curate it to be. And so, but for sure, you have to put in the time. So you have to find the people that make you feel inspired, maybe don't make you like feel bad about yourself. And I think Yeah, that process is probably time consuming, but
It is, and that's a good point because initially when I first started my run through page on Instagram, like I started following the big names like the fast people, like the folks that ran like 20 marathons,
mhm.
or people that would post like I'm gonna run a marathon a month or whatever it may be, right? But then this year, actually, I took a step back and said, okay, is that truly what's motivating me? Like, yes, it's motivational because you can see it and you can see what a human being is capable of doing, but I'm not there. Like, let me find the folks that are running, the 10 to 11 pace mile, like me, or the folks that are, starting out their journey and maybe ran their first marathon recently or about to run their first marathon. Like, and there's plenty of them out there. There's
Mhm.
plenty of them out there, and they're sharing their story and they're sharing their journey. But you're absolutely right. Social media, for good and bad, is what you make it. Is what you who based on who you follow and what you see and what comes up in your feed and all that. So it's
Yeah,
definitely got a potential for very positive outcome.
Yeah,
exactly.
I think the thing from my point of view with respect to running is it's pretty inclusive. I think everybody's normally applauding the person who's getting out there, no matter what they're doing. So
Mostly.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
was driving with my wife today back from the event that Liz and I have just been at, and we saw some more elderly guy with his shoes on, trudging along, and we said, "Whoa, he's doing it tough." And the first thing that my wife said is, "Yeah, but he's out there doing it."
that's right. That's,
And I said, "Yeah, respect."
yes, yes,
And I think lots of runners do that. And the other thing to remember is doesn't matter what level you're at as well. I think people who are just beginning sometimes I get this impression that people who are just beginning maybe look towards maybe Liz and I who are more experienced and go, "Oh, it looks so effortless for you because we're moving a bit quicker or whatever." And I'll say, "No, no, no, no. We're all the Olympic champion and Liz and I and you, we're
yep,
all moving at the level that we can reach for, that we
right.
can stretch for on the day or with your level of experience or your level of training. And it's not easier for the guys who are quicker. They're just reaching at a different point
That's right.
because they're at a
Yeah.
different level. Everybody's reaching to some extent, reaching with the same amount of relative effort. And so from that point of view, we're all the same.
And that's something that I do love about running is you're competing, but you're competing against yourself. Like at the end of the
Mm.
day, right? Is that when I
Mhm.
go
Yeah.
out to a race, like I'm trying to hit my personal record, my personal best. I'm not necessarily racing for me at least. Like I'm not racing against the person next to me. Like I'm not going for an Olympic time or anything like that. Like I'm trying to do better for myself and find my best self. However, there's all these other people around you that have the exact same mentality that you're running
Yeah.
with instead of
Mhm.
running against.
Yeah.
And it's a very intriguing like team and individual sport to me. Uh,
Yeah.
Of course, until you get down to the finishing chute, and then
Mhm.
you're
right,
going to
right.
throw down against the guy who's
That's
next to
right.
you off off the last over the last 50 meters.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
just pride at that point.
Yeah, that's just fun.
So let's start. I mean, we've already kind of talked about you not liking running at the beginning. Initially, you tell some anecdotes in the book about some times when you were running from things when you were a kid. So that was your motivation, was like because you had to get away from something or some situation. Then later, when you actually got into running for real, it was because you didn't make the baseball team. So I guess looking back, are you happy that you didn't make the baseball team, or do you to this day wish that you had played baseball instead?
Oh man, it was the basketball team back then, and
Oops, I got my sports wrong. Can you
that's
tell like
okay.
I
That's
don't
okay.
play team sports?
Sports is sports. It was a team. Either way, I didn't make the team.
Oh,
At the time, was devastated. Like I was just like so, and I was what, a freshman in high school, right? So early teens, and just devastated that I didn't make the team, and I thought my world was over, and like you know my cousin and I think I
It
said
feels that way.
it does, and
Mm.
I thought that like I was gonna be the next like super basketball star and like all this stuff in the NBA and like go play. And now I think back and I was like, what was I thinking? Like, first I'm too short, but ultimately like it wasn't my path. So I don't I don't ever regret not making the team ever at this point, honestly. And then that's kind of why I wrote it down, why I wrote it in there, is because not necessarily to show that I wish I would have made it, but more so that I took that situation, and that situation molded me into who I am today. And who I am today is now a runner, a distance runner that I never thought. If you would ask me in high school, like I would have said you're insane to
Mhm.
tell me that I was a distance runner or was going to be a distance runner. So not necessarily looking back on those moments in any kind of regret or anything like that, but more so leveraging those to now understand. Like at the time, and until I wrote this book, honestly, like I never thought of not making the team as pushing me to who I am today, but as I wrote it down and you start writing, you're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Like I didn't make the team, and what I do after I didn't make the team is I went to run track, and that turned me into at least a short distance runner, which would eventually help me grow into a long distance runner. So yeah, it's all sort of a long drawn out domino effect, I think, that's gotten me to where I am now.
It's interesting because a lot of times when we have a door that closes for us, it's like you said, it's devastating. And
Mhm.
we don't always get to see the door that has opened on the other side until like years later, you're like, oh yeah, I guess, that happened. But then this other thing happened because of that.
Yeah, we're all pretty focused and stung by the door that closes, and we
Yeah.
don't see the door that opens. We just move forward, and then we see in retrospect that there was another door.
Yeah, yeah, and that's actually where part of my run through mantra has taken me, and sort of evolved into, even, and you see it throughout the book, is instead of running from those closed doors, right? Those doors that are closing in my face. I'm running through that moment or through that situation, like metaphorically, like running through, because I know, even if you think of like there's light at the end of the tunnel, right? I'm not running to that light at the end of the tunnel. I'm gonna run through it because I know there's something on the other side of that light that's even bigger and better than what's inside this tunnel right now. So that's really helped me get through even recently, and since before writing this book and through writing this book, it's helped me get through quite a few pretty big situations for sure.
Yeah, as I was reading it, I was thinking, yeah, the run through thing is very process orientated. The idea of your mantra run through, I tend to think of that in terms of a process. So, for example, if we're doing our marathon training, we're not running to the marathon. We're running through the training process, and we're in the now and learning to enjoy marathon training, not learning to suffer the marathon training to try to get to the marathon. The
Yeah,
marathon is just the thing you do afterwards. What
that's
you're
right.
doing is you're in the training and you're running through that process. So
That's exactly it.
it's kind of cool that you probably never thought of it that way, but people are picking up your book and then they read into it their own interpretation of your mantra, which is
Yes,
kind of neat.
it is. It really is. And just the folks that have read the book, and like exactly what you just said, and have come to me and kind of downloaded, this is what I got from the book. And my immediate reaction is, I didn't, that's not what I was trying to get through with the book. But that's great.
You're
Like,
like, okay.
right. That's fantastic that it's helping you. Like, and that's my whole goal with the book, is to inspire folks to understand that, they may be on their own journey or going through something in life, but keep going. Like, just keep going, keep trying, keep pushing. Eventually you'll be through the journey, and you'll be through the light at the end of the tunnel. and there's something on the other side. Whatever it is, there's something, and you can be excited about what that something may be.
That's good. Since we're on the topic of mantras, there was a mantra in your book. Well, not really a mantra, I guess. No pain, no gain. You said that didn't end up working out for you very much. And I think that is a good lesson because it usually doesn't work out very well for most people. Um, and I think like most of us, we think like, oh, no pain, no gain. So everything's got to hurt. Otherwise, we're not getting the maximum out of ourselves, but it's actually more nuanced than that. And it's not always helpful. So maybe you can tell us how you learned that no pain, no gain is not the way to go in sports.
Well, I had to learn the hard way, obviously,
I think
because
like most of us have to learn the hard
most
way for
of us.
some reason. I don't
That's
know.
right.
Like I wish we could just learn from each other, but this is one thing it seems like we always have to make the
That's
mistake.
right.
Yeah.
We do, and it's bizarre because I think so that in that chapter I say something like I now these days like I kind of squirm when I hear no pain no gain because
Same.
it's a potentially poisonous thought process,
Hmm.
right? No
Mhm.
pain, no gain. Like I get it. I get what what some people are saying when they go through no pain, no gain because you have to suffer to get to the others or whatever it might be, right? But you don't have to put your body through like terrible things in order to see some progress.
Mhm.
For me, I mean, the story that I tell was in college where like I rolled my ankle like terribly and it could have been so much better if I would have just taken care of it right then the way I should have. But instead I kept walking on it and I masked the pain with different things and like I kept going. I kept walking on it, running on it, playing on it, like all kind of things. And eventually I now it's actually like a permanent thing for me because my ankle bothers me every now and then. And I still to this day think that's why. Um, but at the time I was like, I'm big and bag and strong and I can do it. I can get through this. This is nothing to me, blah, blah, blah. And now I'm paying for it, whatever 20 some years later. so it's very interesting. It's a very interesting concept, no pain, no gain. But I think that eventually people have to learn the hard way that it's probably not the way to completely go about life or bettering yourself, I guess, is through hurting yourself,
It
Yeah.
sounds like when you were in college, you were doing the frat boy type thing and
Yes.
partying hard and probably eating wrong and probably drinking too much. Welcome to the club.
That's right.
Um,
That's right.
but it seemed that you got moved in with a couple of guys who were a bit more like health nuts, um, who were sort of eating pretty well, and then they
They
cajoled
may
you into doing a 5K race.
It forced
Um,
me.
yeah, sort of peer pressured you in. Um, so you ended up really by accident almost getting into an environment that promoted a change. I think a lot of us eventually find that we can't sustain the fast living, hard partying, hard drinking, poor eating lifestyle as often we have as students, and we find out somehow a way out of that. But it sounded like these people you were living with provided the initial impetus for that.
Yeah, yeah. So yes, the party lifestyle was very, very much alive at the time, for me. And I could see myself not to the point of not getting through classes, not graduate or whatever. Like I was still, staying on top of my education and whatnot and doing what I needed to do. But yes, you get freedom as a, teenager and beyond. And you're like, yeah, let me do whatever I want to do. Like this is perfect.
hmm
And that's exactly what happened. It's the whole, from starting freshman year, you get in and you see different things that you're able to do and you have freedom and whatever else. So yes, I ate terribly. I think I mentioned in the book that I think I reached a stage of some form of level of depression, maybe at
Mm,
or at least realizing like I'm not happy with where I am or where I physically am.
yeah.
Yeah, when I moved in with my two roommates at the time, you're right. Like they were all about like, no, we're gonna eat healthy, we're gonna work out, we're gonna go to the gym at 5 a.m. every morning. At the time, it was mostly, weightlifting, but we're gonna go to the gym at 5 a.m. every morning. And even just from doing that, I noticed a difference. Like just waking up, starting the day right, starting to eat better. I noticed a drastic difference in my mental health, even my mental
Mm-hmm.
health, physical
Yeah.
health. And then when they told me about the 5K, at that point,
Your mental health was suffering at that point.
right, right. My mental health was not okay at that point.
Yeah, on that day it was very bad.
It was bad. It was bad. We had, I think I had like 2 weeks to prepare or something. And I wasn't a runner. Like I had run one
Okay.
mile at a time.
Okay.
And yeah, 2 weeks to prepare. And I had no idea what I was getting into. But my roommates convinced me, they're like, if you can run a mile, you can run 3 miles. Wait a minute.
Not
So
really the same thing, but
right, it's not the
okay.
same thing. It's not the same thing. So yes, I to this day, and I tell them this all the time, like they forced me to run that 5K. But I never stopped. Like I ran
Mm.
the first 5K and
Mm,
I kind of crawled across the finish line. And I became addicted to, at the time, 5Ks,
yeah.
and just addicted to distance running.
In everything in life, there's a whole nature versus nurture kind of discussion. And it almost seems like we probably never know what we would do if we were just living alone on an island by ourselves, right? Like, I think a lot of things that we end up doing or not doing are the environment that we're in, which, like, yeah, you have some capacity to choose. But oftentimes at the beginning, like when you're a teen or early adulthood, you don't really choose them. They kind of choose you. You just kind of end up somewhere. And it seems like you ended up with, I don't know, I guess when you started college, people that liked the kind of lifestyle that you had at the beginning, where you went to parties and you ate bad food and all that kind of stuff. And then just by like moving in with some roommates, you ended up with like a completely different life within a matter of like weeks. It sounded like from the book, it sounded like it was almost instantaneous. It was like you had these two roommates, they were getting up at 5 a.m. So it was like, I guess I'm getting up at 5 a.m. And they're like, we're running this 5K. I guess I'm running this 5K. So I don't know, for people that are out there that are like, oh, I don't think I could ever be a runner. What do you have anything to say about just environment? Like maybe, if
Yeah.
people just put themselves in the environment
Yeah.
that they want to be.
It is about the environment that you're in, and the motivation that's around you, right? So what's happening in your circle. Now, I will say that the folks that I was, in college and partying with, like I still talk to them, like they're still some of my best friends. Like they are my fraternity brothers actually, and they're the greatest people in the world. But all of us at the same time are going through that same thing where it's like we have freedom, let's do something with it.
Mm-hmm.
Which you can't fault. I mean, I'm actually happy I did. I don't regret, not or doing all the college experience, because
Sure.
it sort of made me learn a lot throughout that time. But yeah, once I and to kind of set the timeline. So pretty much all of college was that experience. Was that the roommate situation was a little after I graduated from undergrad, at least. You leave college and you get into the real world, and there's still some of that, right? So there's still some, we have apartments and we're still free, and we have jobs too, but now
Mm-hmm.
partying happens on the weekends, right, instead of during the week. so there's still a little bit of that, but that did very quickly become looking in the mirror type situation, where it's like, what am I doing? Like I need to do better. And it is, eventually really all of us that were in my circle realized that, we need to change things up. And then I actually ended up moving in with these roommates by accident. Like I didn't purposefully change my environment, but
Yeah,
um
that always happens with roommates.
right.
It's a bit by accident. It's like I need a place to live, not by
Yeah,
myself because I can't afford it. So
that,
you
that's
end up.
that's exactly what happened. Like I couldn't afford it. I didn't know the area that I was moving to. And I knew these guys from work at the time, and they said, yeah, let's move in together. And it just so happened, they were both into fitness. So that's what's around me, right? Like that's what I saw
Yeah.
24/7 for that,
Hmm.
however long we were together, we were living together. So it kind of just became part of our habit, part of our routine, I guess. But yeah, it's absolutely, if you're constantly surrounded by certain things, then that's going to become the norm to you, right? If you whether it's good or bad, that's just your world. That's just naturally, how you're gonna live, I guess.
Hmm.
So I guess that's the message. I mean, put yourself in an environment where there is the presence of the sorts of habits that you like to have.
Yep,
You may not have them yet, but if you put yourself in the presence of it enough, then you can get them. I mean, just things
absolutely.
like joining running clubs and going to the gym with your buddies. You get accountability and then consistency, and then suddenly you're in some sort of upward spiral. Suddenly you're a zealot.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. But
Yeah,
even virtually, like not just physical environments, like virtual environments, like we these days, I know we talked about earlier, but like as a society, we are so ingrained with like social media and the things that are happening online just because it's so easy to get,
yeah,
right? It can make or break a person, and like what you see online, because everything is so quick and so like easily to access. What you see is what you see of the world, right? So and that's one of the reasons I started that run through Instagram pages, because I wanted to surround myself virtually with people that are running.
yeah.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
that's what I see. Like now when I log into my Instagram, instead of seeing, the story about the next celebrity or whatever, right? Like
Yeah.
somebody running, like that's it. And
Yeah, I have to say, like, we talked about this a little bit before we started recording, but so I recently I've tried, this is the second time because TikTok is really big. I know a lot of people on TikTok that love TikTok, and I even have like sometimes people tell me that they learned something on TikTok, like because of a TikToker. And so I've tried, this is my second time trying to go on that platform. But because I've never invested the time to curate like what I see, I just see a whole bunch of whatever. Like I see people that are, like putting on makeup in the morning. I don't even wear makeup. You know what I mean? So it's really, so don't go on it very much because I'm like, well, that's a waste of time. Like for me, I just don't feel like there's anything for me to see. But it's only because I didn't really curate the things that I see. I didn't follow many people yet, like I haven't really been on it much. So like the algorithm doesn't know me very well. And I think that's probably the case with so all the social media. I mean, there's always an algorithm, and it's like over time it gets to know what you like and what you click on, and so you have to kind of like go through that process, which is a little bit annoying. But I think if you're down on yourself and I don't know, like your Instagram makes you feel bad about yourself, it's maybe like maybe you need to curate what you see a little bit better because like it can be a really positive place. I mean, on Instagram, I find out about new books.
mhm,
I get to see like pro
Runners.
runners that I follow.
that's right.
What else? There's Laura Green is on Instagram and she's hilarious. She just like makes fun of things that runners do. And
Yeah.
it's fun to laugh at ourselves because it's like a lot of it is really true. She's got a lot of great videos. So yeah, or even on YouTube, like my YouTube is not very curated, but my husband's is because we watch his all the time. So we've got all the like running tech reviewers and shoe reviewers, like Believe in the Run and all these guys. So, social media can be a lot of fun, but it can also be kind of a drag.
It can be poisonous. It can be poisonous at times. But
Yeah,
and that's go ahead.
I think the trick is don't be passive about social media. Try to be proactive.
Hmm.
Ask social media to show you the things that you want to see rather than let social media tell you the things that they want to tell you
That's right.
or sell you.
Yep, or
Yeah.
sell you.
Or
And
sell you.
so
Yeah.
Yeah.
they listen to your conversations apparently. And
Yeah.
you see ads pop up. So I'm in the boat with you, Liz, where I haven't even actually tried to create a TikTok. Like my wife has one, and she's like, "You need to get on." She sent me videos. I can't watch this. I don't have, and I'm not
Yeah.
creating. Like for whatever reason, like it just seems like it seems like another thing for me to
Yeah,
worry about.
it's one more.
Yeah.
Right, one more
Yeah.
thing.
I need to
So,
take
but
one
yeah,
out before I add one in.
that's right. So, but yeah, with Instagram, that's exactly like you got to curate. Like you have to follow the right pages and search for the right things,
Mm,
and look at the right hashtags and all these things, just to make sure that, like you said, like you're not seeing stuff that noise that
Hmm.
you're not really
yeah.
interested in hearing.
So getting on to some of the more, big events in your life and some of the most serious chapters in your book. Your family's gone through some pretty serious events. All families go through what they would consider to be their serious events, but yours are pretty big.
Hmm.
Um, the death of your mother-in-law, clearly a very important person in your life. So that was like a big deal. And your wife, you touched on your wife and her challenges, but you tell us in the book that your wife has multiple sclerosis, MS. It's much easier to say than
Is
multiple sclerosis. But that's a big degenerative disease, and it has flare-ups and very incapacitating, and can really get you can get the person down, but can also get all the support people, yourself being the key one, probably down. So how have you dealt with that? How's running helped you through those kind of moments?
yeah. Um, running has played a pivotal role in all of those moments without me even noticing until I wrote it down in this book. Yes, so that when you get into certain chapters of the book, and I mentioned that they're hard to write, and they are,
Mm,
or they were, and they're hard to rehash as well. But it's part of the journey, right? It's part of my journey, and I do appreciate being able to discuss it. And to be honest, I don't think that my journey is unique by any means. I think that there's a lot of people out there. I know there's a lot of people out there who have lost a parent or who have MS or who, watch their significant other go through these things or whatever else, right? Like plenty of people, so many people go through these exact same situations. So the purpose of me sharing all of this was not necessarily to show, I think I have a unique story, so I want to I want you to read my very unique story. It's more so like there's something in here that you can relate to, right? So maybe you do have somebody that that you have lost a parent or you've lost a parent. Like this is my story of how my wife lost her mom, or somebody with MS. This is my story of watching somebody go through MS and how I've dealt with it. But you're right. Running has been at the forefront of a lot of these scenarios that I look through and I look back on. Even with in part of the book, I talk about asking for my wife's hand in marriage to my mother-in-law, and I didn't realize until I wrote it down, until I reflected back on it. But there's a whole story behind it where she kind of left me hanging for an
yeah,
entire.
I
that was
know
pretty
that was
mean.
rough.
It's kind of, oh, sorry, I've got another call. I'll get back to you.
Right. I was petrified. I was like,
You're
ask
like,
me.
oh no, she's gonna tell me no.
Yes. Like imagine. Like yes, I called my wife's mom because we lived in different states. I called her and my now wife, I guess, and asked for her hand. And she said, I gotta go, I'll call you back. Like right after I asked the question. Like, what?
Oh
So
my
that weekend,
gosh.
like I didn't hear anything from her until Sunday. So that weekend, and that was on a Friday. I ran a lot, like just to clear my head, just to like get out of the house. My wife and I were together a lot. We weren't living together yet, but we were together all the time. So she was over, and I would leave and go clear my head just because I didn't want to like bring it up. Like I didn't want to like tell her about, hey, I called your mom and ask for
And she didn't
and
actually answer my
she didn't
question.
actually answer it. So yeah, I ran a ton that weekend. And then when she finally called me back, and it was a fantastic conversation. That was still one of the most memorable conversations that I've ever had in my life. Was just, I think we talked for a while, and she made sure we were ready, right? So asked all the questions that a mother-in-law would ask, and it was just fantastic, and it's a reflection of who she is and who she was as a human being. She's just very caring and empathetic, and that's translated down to my wife tremendously. So when we lost her, it was hard. It was, I mean, obviously devastating, right? Especially for my wife, because that's her mom. She was an only child. Um,
Mm.
and her mom was relatively young. Like she wasn't that
Hmm.
she was in her mid 60s, and she died of a lung disease. So that alone, just her going through the challenges of lung health, like gets me into running a lot more, right? Because driving awareness to lung research and lung disease, and making sure that I show my daughter, this, we got to keep our bodies healthy, keep our organs healthy. So running is one way to do that. There's all kinds of different benefits. But yeah, running, I think, for me at least, got me through that situation, just from a mental health perspective, just because I could go out and run and clear my mind. And yeah, that was definitely, the one of the key things for me, and especially with watching my wife lose her mother. Like this was 5 years ago, I want to say, almost going on 5 years ago. That was it was just a weird situation to be in, right? Like what do you say to somebody who, you just lost her mother? Like, and it was tough. It was tough. So I did a lot of thinking on my runs, a lot of thinking, a lot of reflecting. And yeah, just continued going. I think during that time I was training for, I think back then it was maybe 10Ks, maybe going into half marathons. So, relatively longer distance runs than the 5Ks, but had plenty of time to do that thinking during that period.
I guess at some point you like running more and more, and you finally decide to do a marathon, which you just completed last year. And you did the
Congratulations.
Detroit. Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you.
congratulations. But you did the Detroit Marathon, which you chose for several reasons. But I thought it was really cool that you explained that this marathon crosses the Canada-US border. And so my question is, and I guess Alan, with his story, he kind of explained that, he was put in a holding pen when he crossed the border, like, so kind of like, well, we'll just round up the animals over here for a while and make sure none of them escape. But how do you run a marathon that goes across a border? Like, did you have to run with your passport? Did you have to show your passport before? Did you even need a passport? Or like, did they do anything special to keep you guys, I guess, on the course? I don't know. All these questions. So you can tell us definitely about what it was like to train and do your first marathon. Um, but I'm really curious about this border crossing
Okay,
thing.
yeah. So I'll start by saying they did not put us in any holding pens. So times
Hmm.
times are
That's
definitely
good. Times have
different.
Times
moved
have
on since
changed.
2004.
That's right. That's right. So
Much more civilized now.
yeah, yeah, yeah. We did not get corralled into pens by any means. There was a lot of structure to it though, which was very, very intriguing to see. A lot of structure to that process. So running, and I'll get into the training after I get into this a little bit, but running into Canada, even out of Canada, you do have to keep your passport with you. They tell you, keep your passport with you, because you can be stopped by a border patrol agent at any time. But you actually, like, you have to show your passport during packet pickup, which happens the day before, during the weekend, right, during the couple days leading up to it. So you have to show your passport, and they check everything there, and then you have a bib, and your bib, like, actually it signifies that you've showed your passport, right? And that I think there's probably some special numbering or something on it that kind of confirms that you've done what you're supposed to do. So you could tell that they were looking, like, Border Patrol was looking very closely at that as you go across the bridge and as you come back. they're looking at everybody, and they say very clearly, like, make sure your bib, if your bib is not showing, like, they will stop you. Like, if they can't see your bib and you're trying to go across Ambassador Bridge, like,
Mm-hmm.
they're going to stop you. And there was so many of them, like, so many. I've never seen that many Border Patrol agents ever, and going both directions. Um, so it was interesting just to see, and the course is very, like, very well roped off, like, especially when you go across the bridge. They shut the bridge down basically, which is insane. Like, Ambassador Bridge is huge, and they shut it down for the run. For the most part, I think there was one lane maybe going. And when you get across, you go through the same thing, and this time you have, the Canadian Border Patrol agents that are looking at your bib and making sure that, they're checking everything. When you're in Canada, it is pretty well roped off. I think we were in Canada for maybe 3 miles, maybe. So it wasn't like a substantial amount of time, but it was enough, right? That they had to
Mm-hmm.
have certain controls. But yeah, it was pretty well roped off, and you could see agents, as you run through and you go through the town. My favorite part, just to kind of veer off a little, my favorite part about this race and about going even to Canada and coming back is the crowds. Like, the crowds on both sides of the border were fantastic. Like,
Oh, I was gonna ask you, like, who was cheering louder?
so here's the thing is that we were in Canada at maybe 7:30 in the morning. So I expected that it'll be quiet, and, like, nobody's gonna
Mm.
wake up at 7:30 in the morning to come cheer on a bunch of people that are running, through the town or whatever. But there were so many people, like,
Oh,
so
wow.
many
That's
people out at
amazing.
7:30, like, either on their front lawns or, like, at restaurants or on the corner or whatever. Like, there were people everywhere, like, just cheering us on. Of course, they had to stay, back a little bit, so they couldn't, come onto the course, obviously. But, like, even with the border patrol watching, they had to stay back a certain distance. But it was electrifying, like, the energy on the Canada side, and because initially on the Detroit side, right, you get the initial rumbling of the crowd at the starting
Yeah.
line and all that, and which is fantastic, and then you keep going and it gets quiet, and then you go across the bridge and it's even quieter because nobody can be on the bridge. But then when you come back through the tunnel, which is interesting that you go through a tunnel to get back, you come back through the tunnel, same concept. It's they're watching you like a hawk. I think they stop people randomly, just to check. But either way, they're watching you. And you come out of the tunnel, and right when you get out of the tunnel, even as you're getting closer and closer to the end of the tunnel, like, you can hear the crowd, like, roaring, like the rumbling starting up. And then when you get out, then it's like, okay, now, Detroit, the U.S. has shown up. Like, it's
Yeah.
probably, what,
They
8,
all woke up
8:30.
while you
Yeah,
were
they
in
all woke
Canada.
up. They all woke up now, and that lasted the entire rest of the race. Like, I kid you not, like, the energy inside throughout Detroit lasted for the rest of the race. Like, there was not a single moment where I felt like I was just out on the course by myself. Like, there was always somebody either on a corner or on the side of the sidewalk or whatever it may be, just cheering you on, which was fantastic. Like, it was a blast. It was a blast. And they're saying, like, at some races, right, where you put your first name or whatever on the bib, so they're saying,
Hmm.
hey, Steven, go Steven, or whatever. And
Yeah.
that just helped. That helped tremendously. So it was a blast. I loved it. I think I wrote about it in the book, but, like, I got a Charlie horse, a little over halfway through, but I still kept going. Like, but I think it's because the energy, of the crowd around and everything kept me going. So it was a blast. It was a lot of fun. I recommend it to anybody. I know it's not one of the top marathons in the world or whatever, but it's so much fun. I'm doing it again this year.
Oh,
So,
wow.
Oh,
yeah,
great.
Okay.
yeah, it's
Oh,
not
so
too
Well,
much.
that's good testament.
yeah. And I guess the marathon distance didn't scare you off then, and the training didn't scare you off.
So now to get into training, so I actually trained twice for a marathon, which I think I may have wrote about. So the year before last, is when my wife got really sick, and that was the first year I trained for a marathon because I was going to do it that year, and it was the same thing in October,
Yeah.
and she went to the hospital at the end of July. So I had made it through all of my training from, like, February to July, and I was ready. Like I felt great. Like training was going fantastic. Like everything was great. And then all of a sudden that night hit us, and I stopped. Everything came to a halt. Like I stopped training. I tried to run, like I think once or twice while she was sick, while she was in the hospital, and I couldn't. Like I just couldn't. Like it was that bad where, I found myself like crying during the run. And
Yeah.
it was devastating. I like we thought we were gonna lose her. There was a good chance we were going to lose her, but she made it through. So I stopped training, and I moved my marathon to the next year, which they allowed me to do, which was great. But after that, I told myself, like, if she can get through all that, and like, because she went to the hospital with pneumonia in both lungs and
That's
blood clots in
incredible.
both lungs, which is just
Jesus.
insane. And she had brain surgery like 2 months before that, so
My
that
God.
didn't help.
Wow.
Yeah,
So
I think you said in the book that there was like they said they estimated there was more than a 40% chance that you wouldn't make it,
yes,
which is
yes,
kind
which
of ridiculously
crazy.
scary.
Like you can flip a
Yeah.
coin
Yeah,
and that'll tell me
And
if
she
I'm
might
exactly.
not.
right or not.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was devastating. It was so bad. Like that is like that moment catapulted me, I think, into like truly like going into the marathon with a different perspective the following year. Because I told myself like if she can get through all that and she can still come out on the other side still smiling like I said earlier, like she's like the I don't know, most energetic person, but um yeah, she got through it. And I told myself during like while my partner and I were running the marathon, like if she can get, like, she went through her own marathon, if she can get through that, I can
Mm,
get through this. Like this is nothing
yeah.
compared to what she went through. So yeah, it was the training. So the first year of training was the year she got sick. Then I stopped in July, at the end of July. And the second year of training is when I went out starting in again February, and just went all in on training and all in on the marathon. And it was a journey. It's definitely a journey, but I made it through.
Yeah, it sounds like your wife made it through as well. And yeah, that must have been probably one of the
It's a brilliant
scariest
story
times.
and
Yeah.
fantastic that you to some extent use your wife as your inspiration.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
you'd feel pretty miserable kind of giving up when your wife has gone through what she's gone through and she's come out the other end for you to not be able to finish a marathon with some little Charlie horse. It's probably a really, really good
Right.
crack.
Right.
I know how you feel during a marathon when you get to the end. You think, no,
Feel
no, no,
pretty
no,
miserable.
no, no, no.
Yeah.
Other people have difficulty, but this is extreme difficulty. I'm probably gonna die if I keep running. But somehow you keep running.
You keep going.
Yeah, yeah,
But yeah, it was a terrifying time. What watching her go through all that. She was in a coma for 8 days. They put her in a medically induced coma for 8 days. She
yeah.
had to like relearn how to walk, relearn how to eat, like all of these things that we take for granted. Like she
Hmm.
Mhm.
completely lost function of. So it was scary, and it still is. And I think there's an aspect of, somebody told me like you get ICU PTSD. I'm like,
Yeah,
it can't be a thing. What? And
yeah,
it is. Like I still I think about it to this day, and it's
yeah.
been 2 years now almost. But yes, it's kept me going, and it's been my inspiration to continue along this journey. So I guess back to the original point was, when I first started my journey of marathon training, I told myself I was going to do one and that's it. Like I'm going to run one marathon and no more after that.
Yeah.
And then when I kept going through, I opened up to the idea, especially, after watching my wife go through what she went through. And then after I finished the marathon, I was like, I can do that again. Like I got it done once. Like, why not? So I'm doing it again this year. I'm gonna try
Okay.
it again this year, and I've got different goals in mind now, right? Like last year, the goal was just finishing.
Hmm.
And now, I want to, set different personal goals for myself to, shave off a certain amount of time and, train a certain way and focus on certain things during my training and whatnot. And let's see how it goes.
Don't pin all your goals on the end result. Put some of your goals into your process.
Yes.
So have
Yes.
a goal to prepare in a certain way because you never know. You might get a bad weather day and then you won't
Yep.
do the marathon the way you thought. You can't allow that to be a negative result.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And
So
that's like you said, you run through the training instead of
yeah,
running to the marathon.
yeah, sure
That's
thing.
it. That's exactly it.
Yeah, I actually had a question about how have you continued on with your run since following the book, but you've just explained that to us.
Yep. Yep.
You're coming around again.
I
And
am. I am. I'm coming back
You've
for more. So I
coming
just
back for more. Oh boy.
coming back for more.
you've become a marathoner.
Yeah.
I have, which is
Uh,
crazy to think about. Like I've
Yeah.
become a marathoner.
And what about your wife? Like, how's she doing? Is her health better now? Like, is she back to normal, whatever that
whatever her
is
normal
for
is.
her? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for asking. Thank you for asking. So she's a lot better compared to where she was during that
Yeah.
time. Actually, interesting enough, so her and I used to run 5Ks together. We used to
Oh,
run
wow.
5Ks
Okay.
when I first started running 5Ks. After that time, I got forced to. Then after that, her and I ran 5Ks together.
Yeah.
And then she had to stop running because of health. And once she had our daughter, she had to stop running. And shortly, maybe 10 months after the big scare a couple years ago, she walked a 5K. So she was back to it. She was back to at least being able to walk that distance, which is huge, where she couldn't walk down the hallway, a couple months after she was out of the hospital and or walk up and down the stairs, right? Let alone walk 3.1 miles. So that was big. That was big, and to me, that was kind of a big turning point, right? To show that
Yeah.
her health is starting to get on the upswing. So now, and that was a year ago. Now she's doing much better. She's doing much better. I mean, the MS is still there, right? So she still
Mm.
she
Never
still has
goes
flare
away.
ups every now and then. But it's maintained. It's controlled, relatively
That's
well.
good to hear.
Yeah, yeah. So we try to support, various MS research organizations and even just MS awareness organizations, things like that. And there's a lot of different medicines that have come out and whatnot. But yeah, she's doing well. She has very good doctors now that are taking care of her. So she's at a good point.
That's great.
Well, I see you dedicated your book to the powerful women in your life. I
Yes.
guess the ones we see in the book are your late mother-in-law, your wife, and your daughter. I guess
Yes.
um, she's probably going to become increasingly powerful.
That's right.
Uh,
That's right.
so, what did you get from those powerful people? What are you most grateful for? What are you appreciative of?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's a great question. So it's more than that, right? So the powerful women that you
Okay,
see in the book are the ones at the forefront today.
yeah,
But I was actually raised primarily by women.
okay.
Between my mom, my grandmother, and this is probably the next book, but I had five grandmothers growing up, like five.
Oh,
Wow.
Insane, like five grandmothers. So just because of remarriage and different things
yes.
like that, and having kids young or whatever, like I
Mm,
grew up, like my great grandmother on my mom's side like helped raise me,
Oh,
and
okay.
wow, your great
great
grandmother.
grandmother,
Oh,
yeah,
wow. Yeah,
my
there
grandmother.
aren't many people
There
that get
aren't.
to know their great
No,
grandmothers.
no,
Yeah,
and
that's
she
pretty
she is
special.
like a very key person in my life, and I think she passed when I was in my early 20s. So she
Wow.
was with us for a long
Goodness
time,
me.
and she's played a huge part. But even like between my all of my grandmothers, my five grandmothers, my mom, my mother-in-law, like you said, my wife, my daughter, like women for whatever reason have played a huge part in my life since I was born, since I can remember. My aunts, like I have multiple aunts that have played a fantastic part in my life. That one of them actually jokes and says that she's my real mom. Like
Yeah.
she loves that. So but yeah, like they've all played a huge role, and I've learned a lot from all of them. My great, especially my great grandmother, she was kind of the matriarch of the family, or she was the matriarch of the family, and she moved with basically nothing from Texas, where
Wow.
parents and family were, moved up to Wisconsin, and then moved over to Michigan, and then she raised all of us, like all of her own children, and then her children's children, and then her
Wow.
Yeah.
children's children.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and she was just the like you didn't want to get on her bad side because she would tell you exactly, what she thought. But if you were on her good side, like she was the most loving person that I've ever met to this day. Like, and I learned all kind of things from her. And then all of the, of course, all the other women in my life as well. My other grandmothers, my mom, like very strong women. I know I don't think there's any woman in my family that's not tough, that's not strong. It's like that's my norm. That's
Yeah.
what I see.
That's your environment.
Yeah, that's my environment is a
That's
bunch of
good.
a bunch of super women like
Yeah.
running around. So
Mm,
yeah, that's definitely played a very key part in my life and my entire journey.
that's amazing.
Yeah. And
So
great dedication.
yeah, I like that. And so since we're on the topic of the book, where can people get a copy of your book if they want to read it?
Yes. So on Amazon. Amazon, it's available in a few different formats. Paperback, audiobook. So I released an audiobook a
Very
little bit
cool.
on
Do
Audible.
you read the audiobook
I
or
do, I
okay,
do,
perfect.
That's
which is
good.
nerve-wracking.
You got a very
Apparently, it's
nice.
really hard to
Yeah.
narrate an
It
audiobook.
is. It
Yeah.
was
You
tough.
got a very nice, clear, calm voice, Stephen. So
Thank you.
that'd be a nice audiobook, I think.
Thank you.
Mm,
Thank you. Yes, so it's available paperback, audiobook, and ebook. So Kindle, all on Amazon. I've got it out on Barnes and Noble as well, but I'm not really pushing it there.
Okay.
But yeah, it's on Amazon. If you search Run Through by SB Stone, you'll find it.
Okay,
and
great. And if people want to follow you or your efforts, where's the best place that they can stalk you?
But my home address is
Don't do that.
yeah, don't
no,
do that. You never know.
right, exactly. You
Yeah,
never know. So on Instagram, the Instagram that I've been talking about,
yeah.
that's my main platform right now, and it's at run through underscore SB. So
Okay.
basically the name of the book and then
Yeah.
underscore my initials SB.
We'll probably put that in the notes, I would imagine.
Yeah, I mean, I'll definitely tag it in our social
Yeah.
media on
Yeah.
Instagram. So,
Okay.
and you're only on Instagram. You don't have do you have a like a Facebook or any of the other platforms, or you've concentrated?
I have a Facebook, but I don't use it
Okay.
Okay.
at
So
all.
mainly,
So
Instagram.
yeah, so
Instagram's
mainly
the port
yeah,
of choice.
you
yeah,
just
Yeah.
and Instagram is kind of where I'm funneling everybody through. Yep.
So do you think you're going to write another book? You've kind of
Maybe.
touched on it a little bit while we
I,
were talking there.
yeah, yeah. I've been thinking about it, and actually on my runs, I've been kind of brainstorming a little bit. But yeah,
Okay.
the and I know so with this book, I mentioned my story is not unique, but with the when I hone in on having five grandmothers and being
Yeah.
able to learn from five grandmothers,
Yeah.
I think that's pretty unique. So
that is pretty unique.
Hmm.
that
Yeah.
you never know. Maybe that'll be my next one. We'll see.
Yeah, sort of a modern version of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs.
That's
It's
right.
Stephen and the five grandmothers.
There you go.
Yeah.
I like
Yeah.
that. I like that. Let me write that down.
You can have that for free.
Yeah, that's pretty great. I mean, I always love when people have stories with their grandmothers because like my parents immigrated to Canada. They had me here. So I mean in theory I had grandmothers, but I never knew any of them. It was just like me
Mm.
and my parents. So when people have any grandmothers, but you have five, which is like extra special, I would say.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
And that's my because my wife is the same way. Like she never knew any of her grandmothers. And my daughter has one grandmother that's still with us. Because and so I think that you learn a lot from your grandmothers because they're the ones that I mean jokingly, right? They keep you and then they send you back to your parents, right?
Yeah.
But they you can there's still so many life lessons that you get from them. So
Well, they've had so much life,
they've had so
they've
much life.
had,
Yes,
yeah.
yes,
So they've
exactly.
learned so many things and it's
They've seen
great.
a lot. They've seen a lot. So you never know. Maybe that'll be my next one if I can remember all the life lessons that they've taught me. Like there's so many.
I'm going to be a granddad for the first time this year, so
Oh wow! Congratulations.
I'll need to get my grandparent game on.
That's right. That's right. That's exciting. That's exciting.
It is, yeah.
Congratulations.
Cheers. Okay, so should we give our summary thoughts on the book,
Sure.
Liz?
Yeah. Do you want to go first, or do you want me to go first?
If you like, I can go first and say all the things that you would have said if you'd
Yeah,
gone first.
yeah, you can you can go ahead and do that.
So, Run Through by S.B. Stone, or Stephen as we know him. So the books are short and an easy read, so you can pick it up. It's a relatively short book, so it's not intimidating from that point of view, and you can get through it in a short period of time. I would say initially the stories are sort of childhood memories, and so they're quite light because they're stories from a childhood. So being terrorized by a dog or chased by the kids at school are not fun, but they're kind of light stories because everybody's grown up now and we laugh about it now, so to speak. But then they get deeper and more serious as the book progresses, and we've heard Stephen tell us we appreciate your candor and your openness, telling us about some of the difficult times in your life, and we hear about those in the book. I would say if you've wondered about how people get into running and why they would find it beneficial, despite probably the initial challenges of getting into running, and we hear plenty of initial challenges with Stephen getting dragged out for just 2 miles and then finding out actually just 2 miles is almost a death sentence.
Mm-hmm.
If you wonder, why those things happen and how they come to happen, and this is certainly a good insight. I mean, it's obviously only one person's journey, but it's representative, I think. We'll have different stories, but with similar sorts of events happening to us or feelings happening to us. So it's great in terms of giving you those beneficial aspects of running despite some of the initial challenges.
I guess also just in terms of running, because we even started the podcast by saying how Stephen hated running and now he loves running. And the thing is, like, he tried several times. There were several attempts, and I think that's sometimes you can think that, oh, I don't like running, or I'm not a runner, or I don't like this thing. But if you've only tried it once, sometimes it's just, okay, you tried it once and you didn't like it then, but you actually kind of never know because, sometimes we just, that one time wasn't long enough to really get everything out of the experience. So the book is, I guess, a testament to persevering if you want to figure out what this running thing is about. But that's probably not the core audience that we have here because, this is running book reviews. So most of you probably are already convinced that you love running. Otherwise, the book was great. It had the chapters were like self-contained stories. So, if you put the book down and you pick it up again, you almost didn't have to remember what the previous chapter was about. It was like little short stories throughout, which was kind of nice. Each one kind of gets to the point, and yeah, there are some very personal experiences, like we've already mentioned. So those were probably not easy to share. But if you're somebody that's going through something similar, let's say it's some kind of health crisis with a family member, it can probably help you feel like you're not alone. I guess the only thing we didn't mention was the cover art. So the cover art is kind of neat. It reminds me of if anybody's ever seen photos of people doing the color run, that's what this cover art reminds me of. It's a bunch of people running, and then there's like splotches of different color paint behind them. So it really reminds me of those photos that you see of the people during the color run that started off with the white shirts, and then like during the color run, everybody's throwing colored powder on you, so your shirt is all tie-dyed by the end, and your hair is pink, and yeah. So I kind of like the cover art. That's pretty much all I had to add. Alan, you pretty much stole my show for the rest
That's
of
what
it.
I'm there for. That's what I came to do. So just once again, just before we give our outro, big thank you, Stephen, for coming and sharing your book with us.
Thank you, guys.
I wish you every
Thank you
success.
for the words. Thank you for the time. Thank you for the review. I definitely appreciate this and all of the things that you both do.
And we'll be checking out the Detroit Marathon results for the next marathon, making sure your name's in there.
That's right.
Don't think we won't.
Yes. Yes. As long as you don't have to scroll down too far.
Okay. We don't mind. Any finish is a win.
That's right. That's exactly it. Yes. Yes.
Would you like to do the outro, Liz? If you promise not to try and get people to give us 1 star on Spotify, which you always seem to try to do.
Okay, no 1 stars. Okay, here I go.
Okay.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Running Book Reviews. Big thanks to Stephen for spending time with us today and for providing review copies of the book. Also, to mention, we got autograph versions.
Yes, we did.
With personalized messages.
When he's a famous author, they're going to be worth a fortune.
Yeah, we're going to put them in a glass case and keep them forever. So if you'd like to give us feedback about how we can improve the podcast, or maybe there's a book that you think we should review one day, you can leave us a comment on social media. We are reviews_running on Twitter, and on Facebook and Instagram, we're Running Book Reviews. Please also follow us on social media to find out about new episodes when they're released, or you can just subscribe to the podcast on your favorite streaming platform. If you've been listening to us for a while and are wondering how you can help us out, there are a few ways. If you are enjoying the podcast, you can spread the word, tell your friends, share a link to your favorite episode, play it when you're driving to your next race with all your running buddies in the same car. You can also leave us a review on Apple Podcasts if that's how you listen to the podcast, or you can rate us on Spotify out of 5 stars. Hopefully 5. I'm not going to mention 1 star.
Well done. Moving right along.
We're also on a platform called Buy Me a Coffee, where you can buy us a coffee, but you can also just go there and follow us. So we're Running Book Reviews. So you just go to the list of creators, start typing Running Book Reviews. We're the only ones that are going to pop up. And if you follow us, then if we post something on there, you'll also get an email. So go over there and follow us on Buy Me a Coffee. That's it for now.
Bye for now.
Bye.